Hey everyone, this video is to show you how to start your illuminated letter project made out of clay. Remember that before you begin your project, you do want to have a finished design for this project using either a letter, a word, or some numbers in your design. You're going to use your sketchbook paper for your design, and you can use the whole paper like I have here, or you could decide to fold that more into a smaller rectangle or square and do a little bit smaller design. It's up to you. Remember that your letter or word needs to have a block letter in it. It needs to have a border around the edges, and you need to have some type of plan in place for how you're going to carve into this work so you get that nice bas relief where you have a three-dimensional element happening in your work. So for example, like for mine, I might be carving in these shapes from the clay. I might be adding on some clay here or adding on clay here. I might be carving out my background, or maybe I will carve out the letter of the K and then add this piece on. But have some plan for how you're going to get varying levels of depth into your design. Once you have your design done, remember, take a photograph of it, upload it to Canvas so I can approve it so that you can begin. So I'll put my design to the side for now, and I'm going to take out my block of clay. I'm going to be cutting this clay in half. And the best way to do that is to just use a little bit of string from your first project, cut about a foot, wrap it around your fingers like you're flossing your teeth, hold that block straight up and down, and just cut straight in the middle. Now my design is pretty big. Again, I'm using a whole piece of paper, so I'm going to use half of my clay, maybe even a little bit more than half. If your design is a little bit smaller, you might not need quite as much. If you are doing this and you realize you don't have enough clay, that's okay. You just stop, smash all your clay together again, and then do it again and roll it out. Have a little bit more. Immediately after you cut that clay in half, take that extra clay you're not using, put it back in the bag. Make sure you wrap it up really well so it doesn't dry out. So this is the clay that I'll be using to make my slab for this project. And the biggest thing I'm going to do starting out is I'm just going to use my heel of my hand to flatten this out. Make sure you're working on the wood board that I gave you at the beginning of the semester in your art kit. So I'm just going to put that clay on the board and start hitting it down into that and flattening it out. Really focus on the center of the clay, which when you focus on the center, that pushes the clay out and it pushes the clay out. You don't want to be flattening the edges because you don't want to have a hill. You want it to be an even thickness throughout. So focusing on the center is going to help with that. So start in the center and then work your way out. After you've done that for a little bit, maybe 30 seconds or so, stop, lift your clay off of the board and flip it over. Our clay is pretty wet and it might want to stick to that board, so flipping it over is going to help with that. I'll do this again. Again, flipping my clay over. You also might want to use your rolling pin for this. Now I like to hold my rolling pin not by the handles, but by putting my hand on top of it and then rolling out this way. You are going to get some marks in the clay when you do this. That's okay, we can always smooth those out later. I might turn my board, work this direction. If your clay starts going off the edge of the board, like it's kind of happening here, it's happening over here, you can always take your plastic cutting tool, any edge will do, even the end will work as well, and you can just cut the excess off. And the nice thing about that is it gives you an idea of how thick your clay is. You can really see how thick the slab is. You want it to be about a ½ inch thick. This project is better to have your slab be a little too thick rather than too thin. If it's too thin, you won't be able to carve very much. Let's flip this clay one more time. Make sure that it's not stuck onto the board. I'm going to take my design, see if this is big enough. I think we're pretty good. Again, if you find that while you're doing this, your clay is getting really thin and you don't have enough, go back to your bag, smash this, put it all back together again into a block, cut it again, cut a little bit more, and then roll out your slab. It's better to start over now than try to make something with the slab that's too thin and it's not gonna work for you. So once I have my clay a good thickness, it's big enough for my whole design, I'm gonna take the edge of my cutting tool, any of those plastic tools will work, and I'm just gonna slice right along the edges, like this, like that. And I have my slab that's gonna be the base for this project. Again, I might flip this over just to make sure it doesn't stick. Once I have this part done, I'm gonna take all these extra little scraps that I have. I'm not gonna throw these away. I'm gonna push those together, put them into a little ball. I'm going to immediately put those back into my bag so I can use those again later. If they feel like they're getting a little dry, you can always spray them with water as well. Make sure that that's really wrapped up. And now we're gonna transfer our design onto the clay. If your clay is very, very wet, you may wanna just pause for a little bit, let that clay dry for 10 or 15 minutes before you do this step. But to transfer your design, you'll just put your paper right on top. There's a couple different options you can do with this. I will show you the one that I prefer most, which is either using your wood tool or using a pen or a pencil. And you're just gonna go right on top of your design. Don't press down so hard that you actually puncture the paper. Notice I'm almost holding it parallel, nice and flat. I did go through my paper just a little bit there, which is okay. The nice thing about using a pen for this is then you can see where you've gone. If you use the wooden tool, you can't see which lines you may have missed. But you're gonna go over all of your lines. Every now and then lift the paper back and double check, make sure that you can really see where that edge is, where those lines are. So I'll go over all of these lines, all of these lines. This can be a little bit time consuming. It also might be a little bit tedious, but this is a better option than trying to freehand your design on the clay. I've had students before who they just want to draw their design freehand on here. They'll go like this and just try to draw freehand, which you could try to do. I mean, you can draw lines right on the clay to draw your design, but if you mess up, you have to start over and smooth it out every now and then to fix it. So this way I think is a little bit more precise, because then you have that design. You can see the indentations are nice and light. You can see where I'm going here. So we'll go through, I think I already did this line. So once you've traced your whole design and you can see that it's transferring through like that. I'm not going to show you the whole design, but you can imagine I go over everything. It's going to be really light. And then I'm going to take my wooden tool one more time and I'm going to go over those lines one last time just to be sure I really know where my design is. I'm not pressing down hard at all, and the clay is really wet right now. So it's pretty sticky. My design looks a little sloppy, but as the clay dries, we'll be able to refine it more. So you guys get the idea. You'll go over your whole design on here. I'll show you more of a finished example here. So this is another example I've done, a little bit smaller one, where I have my slab and I've gone over my whole design and I've carved out those lines. You can see it's really shallow. This clay is leather hard right now. You can see it's really holding its shape nicely. All those little bits that were kind of coming up when I was carving it, I can take my finger and I can start cleaning those off just a little bit. But again, we are not going to start carving your clay until it gets to this stage where it's nice and leather hard. It'll hold its shape in my hand. This is the ideal stage for carving. Right now, your clay is much too wet. If I lift this, do you see how the clay is bowing and bending? We don't want that to happen. So our goal now is to just get our design transferred, let it rest for a little while till we get to this leather hard stage, and then this is where we're going to start actually carving, which is what we'll show in the next video.